This story begins in Mesopotamia, today's Iraq. That fertile land spread between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, where some of the world's oldest civilizations developed. In this very region, people began noticing a strange, natural phenomenon. In some places, a black, thick, sticky liquid would seep out on its own from cracks in the ground. Its smell was strong, its color was pitch black, and it behaved completely differently from water. No one knew what it was. But humanity's greatest strength has always been its curiosity. Slowly, people began experimenting with this mysterious substance, and soon they discovered a unique property. Wherever this substance was applied, water could not penetrate. This is where the first use of oil began. The Sumerians started using this natural substance to waterproof their wooden boats. The benefit was immediately visible. Boats began lasting longer, long journeys became easier, and trade via the rivers grew rapidly. After some time, people thought that if it could stop water, maybe it could also be useful in buildings. They started filling it between bricks. This made walls stronger and more durable. Even today, archaeologists find evidence of natural bitumen in the ruins of ancient Babylon. At that time, people saw it simply as a useful substance. No one wondered how it formed inside the earth. Time passed, and this black substance traveled from Mesopotamia to Egypt. But here, its role changed completely. The Egyptians did not see death as an end, but as the beginning of a new journey. So, in the mummification process, several natural substances were used to preserve the body for a long time. And in some places, natural bitumen was among them. Later, in Arabic, the word mumia came to be used for natural bitumen, and eventually the word mummy was linked to it too. So the substance that once strengthened boats and buildings later came to protect the bodies of kings from the effects of time. But the story of oil wasn't limited to just Mesopotamia and Egypt. Around the same time, thousands of kilometers away in China's Sichuan region, people had also become familiar with this mysterious black liquid. The difference was that they didn't just observe it and move on. They figured out how to extract it from the earth. Long, hollow bamboo pipes were driven deep into the ground, with the help of which natural gas, and in some places this black liquid, was brought to the surface. Wherever possible, it was used for light and heat. For the first time, humans were learning to use the energy hidden beneath the earth, without understanding what they were actually using. After this, the black substance showed yet another face. In ancient Persia, flammable oil and natural asphalt began being used in warfare. According to historians, these were used in flaming arrows and fire weapons. The same substance that was making boats safe elsewhere was setting enemy forts ablaze elsewhere. For the first time, people began to realize that this black liquid wasn't just useful, it was also immensely powerful. Meanwhile, in Greece, this mysterious substance was viewed from an entirely different angle. Some physicians began using natural oil and bitumen-like substances to treat certain skin and joint problems. They didn't know the scientific reason behind it, but modern research suggests that some natural components of crude oil may have antibacterial properties. So often, ancient experience points in the right direction centuries before modern science catches up. By now, many great civilizations, Mesopotamia, Egypt, China, Persia, and Greece, were using this black substance in different ways. Somewhere it was building boats, somewhere buildings, somewhere medicines, and somewhere weapons of war. But despite all this, not a single person in the world knew what this black liquid actually was, how it formed inside the earth, and how it remained hidden underground for millions of years. The answers to these questions came to humanity much later. Even today, many people believe that oil forms from the remains of dinosaurs. But the truth is quite different. The story of oil doesn't begin with dinosaurs. It begins millions of years before them too, around 300 to 400 million years ago. The Earth was nothing like it is today. Where continents exist now, there were once vast oceans. In these oceans lived billions and trillions of microscopic organisms, so small that they couldn't even be seen with the naked eye. These included microscopic algae, plankton, and other marine creatures. When these organisms died, their remains settled at the bottom of the ocean. Every year, new layers of soil and sand piled on top of them. Then another layer, then another on top of that. This process continued for not just millions, but hundreds of millions of years. Gradually, these biological remains sank deeper and deeper into the earth. But burial alone doesn't create oil. The real transformation begins with the heat and pressure found deep within the earth. As depth increases, so does temperature and pressure. Over hundreds of millions of years, this heat and pressure slowly transform those biological remains. First, they turned into a wax-like substance that scientists call kerogen. Then, when the temperature reaches roughly 60 to 120 degrees Celsius, this kerogen breaks down and turns into crude oil. If the temperature rises even further, that same substance can turn into natural gas. So oil doesn't form in a single day. It takes not millions, but hundreds of millions of years to form. But the story still isn't over. Oil doesn't stay where it forms, because oil is lighter than water, so it gradually rises upward through fine cracks in the rocks. If it encounters a hard rock layer along the way that blocks its path, it accumulates beneath that layer. This is how vast underground oil reserves form. This is why it's not necessary that oil is found exactly where it was created. Many times it travels several kilometers away from where it formed and collects elsewhere. But humans had no idea about this entire process. For thousands of years, people only used the oil that seeped out to the surface on its own. They had no idea that beneath their feet lay countless vast reserves that could change the entire world. If oil is underground, why can't it be extracted? Until the mid-19th century, this was the question facing the entire world. People knew that in some places oil naturally came out of the ground, but no one had ever proven that it could also be extracted from deep within the earth. Meanwhile, the world was changing rapidly. The Industrial Revolution was at its peak in Europe and America. City populations were growing, factories were being built continuously, and the need for light at night had become greater than ever before. At that time, most homes and streets used whale oil for lighting, but a problem kept growing bigger. Whale hunting was increasing so rapidly that whale oil was becoming both expensive and limited. The world needed a new fuel. And then a new discovery brought hope. In 1846, Canadian geologist Abraham Gessner developed a clean and relatively safe fuel from crude oil. He named it kerosene. Within a few years, it became one of the most popular fuels used for lighting. For the first time, people realized that if crude oil could be obtained at large quantities, an enormous industry could be built from it. But the problem remained the same. Where would the oil come from? Most people believed that finding oil depended on luck. If it seeped out on its own somewhere, fine. Otherwise, there's no way to find it. But every great change begins with a person who refuses to think like everyone else. One such person was Edwin Drake. Interestingly, he was neither a scientist, nor an engineer, nor a geologist. He was a retired railway employee, sent to Pennsylvania by a small oil company. His job was to drill into the ground and find out whether oil could be extracted from below. Months passed, money began running short, and the company's confidence began to waver. But Drake didn't give up. He kept drilling, and then, on August 27, 1859, in the small town of Titusville, Pennsylvania, at a depth of about 69 feet, a black liquid suddenly began rising up through the drill pipe. The same black liquid that the people of Mesopotamia had once seen seeping from the ground. The only difference this time was that humans weren't waiting for it. They had for the first time extracted it from deep within the earth. This was the world's first successful commercial oil well. That one discovery didn't just extract oil, it gave birth to an entirely new industry. Within a few months, thousands of people started arriving in Pennsylvania. Where there had been farmland just the day before, dozens of drilling towers now stood. Land prices suddenly skyrocketed. Many ordinary farmers became rich almost overnight. Everyone hoped that the next oil well might be right under their own land. But amid this frenzy, there was one man whose eye wasn't on the oil itself, but on the entire business. He understood that the biggest profit wasn't in finding oil, but in controlling it. And that man went on to become the most powerful industrialist in the world. His name was John D. Rockefeller. While the whole world was racing to find oil, Rockefeller was seeing something else entirely. He quickly understood that extracting oil was one thing, but making steady money from it was something else altogether. At that time, the oil industry was completely disorganized. Sometimes oil prices would suddenly rise, and sometimes they would crash so hard that many companies would shut down overnight. Someone would become a millionaire today, and just months later, that same person would be drowning in debt. Rockefeller watched all this very carefully. And it was here that he made a decision that set him apart from everyone else. Instead of investing in drilling, he focused on the business of refining and selling oil. Because crude oil coming straight out of the ground was of no use on its own, it had to be refined. Only then could kerosene, lubricants, and other useful products be made from it. In 1863, Rockefeller invested in his first refinery. As demand for kerosene grew, his business grew rapidly along with it. But his greatest strength wasn't just his refinery. His real strength was strategy. He understood that if oil could be transported cheaply from one place to another, the market could easily be captured. At that time, railways were the biggest means of transporting oil. Rockefeller made special deals with railway companies. While other traders paid full fare, his company shipped oil at a much lower cost. This cut his expenses, and he began selling his products at lower prices. Other companies couldn't compete at such low prices. Many companies shut down, and the ones that survived were bought out by Rockefeller. Gradually, small refineries, one by one, became part of his company. Then, in 1870, he formed a new company, Standard Oil. In the years that followed, this company became the biggest force in the American oil industry. Within just a decade, Standard Oil controlled about 90% of the oil refined in America. Rockefeller's wealth kept growing, so much that he came to be counted among the richest people in history. In today's value, his estimated net worth is considered to be around $400 billion. But as fast as his empire was growing, opposition was growing just as fast. The government feared that if a single company controlled the entire oil industry, market competition would disappear. Finally, in 1911, the U.S. Supreme Court ordered that Standard Oil be broken up into several separate companies. The government thought this would end Rockefeller's power, but the exact opposite happened. The share prices of the new companies kept rising, and Rockefeller remained a shareholder in all of them. So the decision that was seen as his biggest defeat ended up making him even richer than before. But during this same period, the world was also changing. Until then, oil's biggest use had been for lighting, but a new invention was about to change the importance of oil forever: the internal combustion engine. Until the end of the 19th century, oil's biggest use was in kerosene made for lighting. But as engines developed, the true power of crude oil began to emerge. The biggest change was brought about by petrol. In 1886, German engineer Carl Benz built the first successful petrol-powered car. At first, people saw it as just a new experiment. They didn't think it would change the world, but within a few years, the number of motor vehicles on the roads began to grow. Then came Henry Ford. In 1908, he launched the Model T, one of the first cars that ordinary people could afford. Ford adopted assembly line technology, which made building cars faster and cheaper. Within just a few years, millions of cars were running on America's roads. Then came trucks, buses, tractors. Gradually, every new machine became dependent on fuel derived from oil. Oil was no longer just a source of light. It had become the heartbeat of the entire modern economy. But as the world's dependence on oil grew, a new question also arose. Where would all this oil come from? By the start of the 20th century, America had become the world's largest oil-producing country. But scientists and geologists gradually began realizing that there were even bigger oil reserves hidden beneath the earth. Then, one discovery after another changed the balance of power across the entire world. In 1908, in what is now Iran, a British expedition discovered a massive oil reserve, the first major commercial oil field in the Middle East. Within a few years, Britain began extracting oil here on a large scale, but this was just the beginning. In 1932, the search for oil began in Saudi Arabia. The early years brought repeated failures, and many began to believe there was no oil there at all. But in 1938, an enormous quantity of oil was struck at Dammam Well number 7 near Dhahran, stunning the entire world. This was the discovery that changed Saudi Arabia's fortune forever. After this, one massive oil reserve after another was discovered in Kuwait, Iraq, Abu Dhabi, and across the entire Gulf region. Within a few decades, the world realized that the largest oil reserves weren't in America, but hidden beneath the sands of the Middle East. Gradually, the world's biggest oil companies began arriving in these countries. They made major agreements to extract oil. At first, most of the profit went to foreign companies, even though the oil was coming out of these countries' own land. But over time, oil-producing nations began to understand their own power. Then in 1960, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and Venezuela came together to form a new organization, OPEC. The purpose of this organization was to increase oil-producing nations' control over oil production and pricing. At first, the world didn't take it too seriously. But a few years later, OPEC made a decision that shook the entire world. And for the first time, the world realized that oil wasn't just a fuel, but the very heartbeat of the entire global economy. In 1973, a war broke out in the Middle East. Several Western countries supported Israel. In response, several Arab oil-producing nations cut oil production and halted supply to some countries. For the first time, the world saw that just a reduction in oil supply could shake the entire global economy. Within a few weeks, oil prices multiplied several times over. Long lines formed outside petrol pumps, factory costs rose, inflation surged, and the world realized that almost every part of modern life depends on oil in some form. If we look back at this entire journey, it isn't just the story of a black liquid. It's the story of human civilization. 4,000 years ago, the farmers of Mesopotamia saw a strange black substance seeping from the ground. They had no idea that this same substance would one day build the world's biggest companies, create the richest people, run the entire global economy, and even change the politics of nations. Oil gave humanity light, gave it speed, gave it industries, and played the biggest role in building the modern world. But this same oil also taught us that when an entire civilization becomes dependent on a single resource, that dependence becomes both its greatest strength and its greatest weakness. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson in the history of oil. This black liquid, hidden for hundreds of millions of years beneath the earth, was never just a natural resource. It was the fuel that powered the modern world.